What's going on? So we're back with another video where I am going to not only try to help you spend your money in better places or help you save, or maybe you end up deciding that I don't care what you say, I'm just gonna blow my money on that anyway because I damn well want to. And you know what? You be in your right to do so. But first, just hear me out, okay? Donut Media does it again, upgrading this Civic with outlandish, overpriced parts, which is not a bad idea because I've actually done it. So no shade to them. They do awesome content, but I thought specifically on this Civic, this is right in my wheelhouse, just churning it up.
After today, she would have to do the job by herself.
So listen, they decide this time that they're gonna do an ITB upgrade. If you don't know what that is, that's individual throttle bodies. Now, before even the Civics come along and we start putting individual throttle bodies on these B series or these K series or whatever else you wanna have, HTB swaps, anything like that, it came in the old days. And I remember my grandfather fondly telling me some things about the throttle bodies. Okay, now before it was throttle bodies, it was the carburetors. You had individual or you had multiple carburetors, okay? You had barrels in these carburetors, but some of these older engines actually had two offset carburetors, or even three in some time. And sometimes this shit just got crazy. But now what we have in the JDM world, we have ITBs, which really kind of resemble like a musical trumpet of performance calling. Don't get me wrong, they sound awesome. But is it worth your money? Some of these setups are crazy in the price range, and some of these setups are actually very cheap and strangely prices that make me think about, oh, it gives me way. Yeah. You don't want to end up like that. Okay, I'm talking about cheap prices. Walmart's in the game. It's crazy. $350 ranging all the way to $5,000 for these setups. You probably don't want to buy that $350 part, but if you do, let me know how that turns out for you. I've often found in areas like this, when it comes to getting less expensive parts, turbo kits, superchargers, throttle bodies, ITBs, for example, you're going to end up in a very sticky or bad situation.
Yeah, that was bad.
But on the other end of that spectrum, we're talking about $5,000, $3,000 for basically throttle bodies. Now, me, myself, I have two Skunk 2 Alpha Series throttle bodies. One is like the raw aluminum finish and the other is black finish, and that's kind of what I'm going in my engine bait scheme. So that's what I have now. Those throttle bodies cost me in the range of $300 and some-ish. Now, of course, this throttle body feeds into like a plenum that has runners that feed down into the engine. So that's how this is different from the individual throttle bodies. You're gonna get rid of that single throttle body that's gonna feed into that plenum. Now you're going throttle body directly into the midst of it all. Individually, doors flapping, fuel flowing, wind and air just going.
Calm down.
I'm calm! And it sounds awesome, but do you really need it? So let's talk about some of the things that Donut Media had to do to even get this to work on their ride. They thought maybe it was going to be a direct fit. It didn't fit, and it wasn't direct. And as a matter of fact, they ended up hacking up blocks and aluminum off of this motor, which they can get some of their money back from that because you can recycle. Aluminum's running at a pretty good rate. Don't steal it, and don't steal copper. It's horrible. I've seen people do it in houses.
Because when he was done hacking through this copper pipe,
you don't want to end up like that. So anyway, they get into this individual throttle body. $5,000 later, they finally get it on, finally get it to work. But let me tell you some of the pros and the cons that I'm aware of. And if you're aware of any other pros and cons, or if you have an individual throttle body setup and you'd like to say, hey, Jay, it's not that bad, I actually enjoy it.
Yeah, right. Vision is highly overrated.
Or you know what? I had it, I tried it, and it sucked. If it did suck, let me know below in the comment section. Plus, subscribe, like, do all that good stuff. So, back in the day, like I was saying, the individual carburetors, they were a pain in the butt because you had to adjust the linkages. These carburetors needed to be synced in order to open up properly so the motor or the engine would run properly. The same thing goes for these individual throttle bodies. You'll see that there's a linkage across all the throttle bodies that is joint, and these throttle body linkages have adjustments on it because these butterflies have to open up in order for the engine to run correctly. So some of the pros: definitely, you're gonna have individual runners, individual fuel feed right into there. You're gonna have more airflow kicking down right in. It's direct airflow right directly into the throttle body. Whereas when you run plenum style and you have a single throttle body at the head of that plenum or that intake manifold, it's gonna feed air. That first runner is gonna get majority of the air. The one in the back, sometime in some situations on some motors like the RB26, starves in the rear, or the last one, because it's an inline six. So you get rid of that situation. But there are a lot more cons in my opinion. The linkage system setup, if you don't have it set up right, you're running into tuning situations. The motor's gonna run finicky. I've often heard that it's not great at just cruise around, ride around type throttle situations. So it's very sensitive to that. If it's not wide open throttle, it's just not worth it. Another thing is you're gonna have probably increased gas mileage, which means you're gonna get less mileage for the gas. And right now, gas ain't cheap. And you probably need to sign up for a rewards program. Gas is not cheap. The other situation is this. A lot of people like to try to get cooler air into this. Now, we all know denser, cooler air, bigger molecules, more fuel, more power. At some point in time, it kind of crosses over, because then you run into a situation again where your air is so dense, so cool that your engine has to compensate for that to add increased fuel, which then again affects your gas mileage. But individual throttle bodies, they're open atmospherically inside the engine bay. And so with that being the case, on average, it's not so good, all right? You don't want a lot of hot air getting in there. That's less performance. Now, they do have some setups where you pretty much couple a housing over these individual throttle bodies, which now they're pretty much acting as runners individually now, together in one plenum, feeding in one source, and then it's kind of redundant because I should have just went what I had.
Stupid! You're stupid! Stop being stupid!
So, as I was saying, pros, cons, there you go. Now, when it comes to the single throttle body system, which is traditional, what you see, intake, you can have that extend to the outside of the car, pull in cooler air, or you can have a short ram, which short ram's gonna pull from in the engine bay, maybe slightly somewhere where airflow might be moving a bit more. Another thing is you're getting that hot air. You got a layer of protection from the hot air, although the intake manifold could get heat soaked. So there are some things there, but I will tell you this. I've seen several fast Hondas, B series and K series, not running individual throttle bodies. I've heard several cases where individual throttle bodies are not the best thing to do. So why did Donut Media elect to do an individual throttle body system upwards of $5,000 on this Civic, which right now I think they've dumped 50 grand in it? Wow! And I can't throw shade on that, because if I tell you about how much I'm putting into the wide body project after I've rebuilt this car 2 times, yeah, there's a good saying, don't throw stones when you live in a glass house. What's good for the gander is good for the goose. Big shout out to Donut Media for that. But anyway, $5,000. So my point is this, yes, Donut Media did it. Sound great, but you know what? I also found out there tuning. There are videos on YouTube where you can find content creators that have the ITB and the standard intake manifold setup, and often gone ahead and shown you the difference in horsepower. The ITBs seem like maybe top end, typical throttle body with the plenum, low end, but a lot of them report that tuning was often better with the standard setup, okay? So you don't need to, and I can tell you right now, there's a better place to put $5 grand aside from individual throttle bodies. Why don't you get you a nice little turbo setup? There's a nice turbo setup out there for like $3,500. Matter of fact, hit up the crew at Humble Performance. I'm pretty sure they'll be coming in and out of stock with their turbo kits at some point in time. They might be out of stock now, but pretty sure they'll get them in. And when they do get them in, they make good turbo kits for the Honda K series or the B series. They offer a great tuning solution. $5 grand will get you in and get you more horsepower and bang for your buck, baby. $5,000 should get you way more than a few little sprinkled of powdered sugar horsepower. But listen to me, if you spend $5,000 in a nice little turbo setup, let's say you spend about $3,500 for your turbo setup, you spend about $1,200 for your tuning solution, you spend about another $1,000 for your tuner to go ahead and hook you up, you're gonna get well more than 10 horsepower. With the K series, you know on stock internals, you're good for 500 all day as long as you got a good solid good OEM K series. On B series, of course, I wouldn't recommend running over 6 pounds of pressure unless you've built that motor. And even at 6 pounds of pressure, you're gonna get more bang for your buck than this ITB setup. I can tell you that right now. Okay, so big shout out to everybody out there that's running either ITB or regular, you're just running a regular steak, skunk 2 intake manifold, golden eagle intake manifold, whatever intake manifold. When these companies start paying me for ads, I really would appreciate it. And if you could subscribe to the channel, I'm looking to get over 1,000 subscribers. But either either way it goes, let me know which one you would choose. I think Donut Media, awesome for them to do it, but I don't think it was necessary. I think that there's a better way to go, and you still could have got a lot of horsepower out of that K series that they had, and for a lot less money, you could have did something, okay? So let me know what you think. This is just what I think. No hate, no shade, just my opinion on the money you spend could go a lot further if you spend it in the right places. And with that being said, just build it. Peace. I'm out.